All right, let's do this. Hi, my name is Richard Lesperance. I go by the name of my man Richard. Welcome to A Better Lifestyle. Today I have a special guest. I forgot to ask for the name. If is Jamie Lima. Is that right?
Jamie Lima. Yes, Lima.
Lima. Okay.
Yeah.
I have Jamie with me here. He's doing great work in the finance world, and I think you guys are gonna like that. We're gonna talk about divorce and finance. So please, Jamie, tell a little bit about yourself, your story, and we'll get started.
Thanks for having me, by the way. I mean, I appreciate the intro there. You're absolutely right. I specialize in finances and dealing with people that are going through divorce and helping them navigate, the financial nuances that they have relative to their divorce. As far as background goes, I've been a financial planner for almost 20 years now. I've spent a lot of time in this area. I cut my teeth in the industry and with some big name firms, many of which you would recognize if I mentioned their names. I started my own company about 4 years ago now, just to be able to control my own destiny, so to speak. And I have a specialization in finance, so I've been doing this work for quite some time. Really, where it stemmed from was just going way back. When I was a kid, I was probably 7 or 8 years old or so, and my parents, they ended up getting a divorce when they married young, and they were probably doomed from the beginning. But when I was around 7 or 8 years old, they decided that they were going to get a divorce. And I remember even at that young age how I recognized the stress and the strain that was on them to be able to make things work. Right. My mother worked multiple jobs. My dad worked multiple jobs. And I realized, like, wow, this is really, really tough on them. And I think that really planted the seed, so to speak, of my interest in the world of finance and understanding how to manage money and what money means and all those things. And that's looking back, I think that's really what propelled me into the career that I have, and really trying to help other people not have to deal with the same stress and strain over money, like, my family experienced when I was very, very young. And, then in 2017, I went through my own divorce myself, which was very emotionally challenging and certainly financially draining. And even being in the finance world at that point, I was probably 13 or 14 years into my career in the world of finance. I still made mistakes financially in my own divorce. So I know people that are out there that don't have the experience that I have and don't have the hands-on experience and the book knowledge that I have, are probably really, really stressed if this is something that they're considering going through or they're in the middle of right now. And my job is really to help them navigate it and take away some of that stress for them and really put them in a position where they can be financially successful even after the divorce is settled. So I think that in a nutshell, that's effectively how I got into the business and a little bit about me and why I do the work that I do.
So, in your what you've seen as a certified divorce financial analysis analyst, what's the like you've seen a lot of things. So, what would you say about the whole thing in regards to divorce and finance?
The first thing that I think of when people ask me that question is like, what do I need to consider relative to divorce? The first mistake that a lot of people make is picking up the phone and calling an attorney. I made the same mistake in my own divorce where I just had decided that it was happening, and I wanted to, go out and interview a few attorneys and make sure I picked the right one for myself. And I thought somebody that, wanted to find somebody that I thought was going to get the job done. And it turned out fine. I mean, it was incredibly expensive. And that's the real problem there is, as soon as you pick up the phone and call an attorney, they're going to want a $5,000, maybe a $10,000 retainer. And that money can go very quickly depending on how challenging the divorce is. So what I would encourage people that are listening to think about, if they're on the doorstep of this and they haven't hired an attorney yet, there are other resources out there that you should explore first. There are divorce attorneys. There are divorce mediators. I am a divorce mediator, so I can come in and be a neutral third party and help people through the process and try to, arrange a settlement and keep you out of the courts. you don't have to pick up the phone and call an attorney first. There are a lot of other resources out there. I mean, there are Facebook groups and there are therapists and there are a lot of other resources out there that can help you through this process. It doesn't necessarily, sometimes you're going to have to call an attorney, especially if things are going to be challenging and you're going to need the side of the courts on your side, the courts on your side, so to speak. But that's the biggest mistake people make, is picking up the phone and calling an attorney. I think there's definitely other avenues that you can explore. And then if later on you have to use an attorney, then so be it. But it shouldn't be the first call, I don't think.
And do you have any examples of good or bad? Well, good and bad, like because divorce could be very nasty, financially devastating for couples. So, do you have any examples that one way it went bad, and another example that the divorce was okay, but it was settled in a proper manner?
I'll share with you my own personal experience. Like I told you leading up to this conversation, I'm an open book, so I'm happy to share about my own experience. If you look at mine, when I decided that I wanted a divorce, and I told my now ex-wife that I wanted a divorce, and this was happening, I sat there and said, you know what, I want to try to make this as easy and as painless as possible. Let's do what we can to stay out of the courts. I want everybody to be cool. No problem. And she looked at me dead in the eye and said, I will make this as expensive and as painful as I possibly can make it. And she lived up to that promise. It took us a year to get through the process. I think we spent probably $60,000 on attorney fees over that course of the year just to get divorced. Unnecessary, right? On the other side of the spectrum, luckily, I found another person, and I'm recently remarried to my wife now, and her experience was the complete opposite. They decided that they were going to part ways amicably, and effectively they just uncoupled, right? And their main focus was on the kids and making sure that they were okay and that there was no fighting and so on. And their divorce was done for $1,000. They went to a self-help divorce company here, and I'm located in San Diego. There are companies like this all over the country, and there are self-help legal companies that are out there that will help you draft the documents and file them with the courts. And I sat there. I was actually a witness to the documents. I was signed off on the documents, and we filed them with the courts. And $1,000 later, they were divorced. And now everybody gets along. The kids are amazing. Her ex-husband is our handyman. He's our contractor. He's helped do a remodel on our home, done a lot of work for us. It's amazing. It has its pitfalls sometimes, but I mean, at the end, in most cases, it's amazing. So there are two very different ends of the spectrum, and it doesn't have to be, you don't always have to put the boxing gloves on, so to speak, to get through this process. And those are just my own personal examples.
Wow, night and day.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some common challenges that people face when they're going through the process of divorce?
Well, one of the biggest is the expense of it, right? And trying to get through this process, and it can be very, very expensive. So people like me, my job is to come in and help people save money. Even though I'm focused on the financial side of things, and I can't operate from a legal capacity, but if I can come in and help people navigate the financial decisions that they have to make and try to do that, and I feel like we can do that more effectively and efficiently than a lot of attorneys can, which saves people money. And that's one of the biggest challenges, just the amount of money it can cost to get a divorce, which is it's unnecessary as far as I'm concerned. I think there are some other challenges that people face, and one of the first ones is they don't understand the impact that things like taxes will have on a divorce, right? They may have one asset that is, let's say they have $100,000 in a 401k, and they have $100,000 in equity in their home, and they're going to just make a decision that, you keep that account, I'll keep the house, and we'll move on. Well, it may sound like a good idea on the surface, but there are tax benefits to keeping the home versus the 401k. And you have to understand how taxes impact some of the decisions that you have to make. And so that's another hot button that I see a lot. And secondly, the other challenge that we face is not having information that we need from the other side. There are a lot. We mostly work with women. You know, this is not saying that we won't work with men, but a lot of the women, that 99% of the clients we work with are women. And this is not to be sexist at all, but usually the man in the relationship, at least in my experience so far, they're the ones that have, made the investments or opened the brokerage accounts or they saved in their 401k, or they open up credit card accounts and so on. And when they decide that they want a divorce, sometimes they try to hide that information so the other side doesn't have purview into what's going on financially. And that it can be a real challenge. But I will tell you, and I will tell everybody that's listening here, if that's you, and if you're trying to hide money or not share that information with your significant other, it's totally fine, because we're going to get the information one way or another. Either you're going to cough it up and be nice about it and be cooperative about it, or the courts are going to compel you to give us the information anyway, and it's just going to cost you even more money to do that. So one way or another, we're going to find that information. But I see that happen a lot, where people think they're just going to hide stuff, and we end up finding it anyway. Whether the judge tells us that we have access to it or gives us access to it, or whether the opposing client gives it to us as well.
You talk about the tax implications in the retirement and all that. Other things that they should pay attention to.
Specifically to retirement.
No, well, we'll talk about retirement, but like you talked about the tax implications. Are there other things that people should be aware of also?
Well, I think the other piece is the actual valuation of an account, right? And this ties into the tax piece, where in my example of the 401k, if you have a retirement account, and if you have $100,000 or $200,000, or you have $1 million in the retirement account, it doesn't matter. You don't really have that amount of money in there, because every time you take money out, it's going to cost you money from a tax perspective, right? So if you have $100,000 retirement account, it's really only worth about $70,000, because the IRS is going to take some of it. So we have to understand what the after-tax valuations are for all of the assets that we have. And that's one of the things that we do as certified divorce financial analysts, or CDFAs. We'll review the assets that you have. We'll look at your tax situation, and we'll help you and your spouse understand who owns what and what the real value is. And that's one of the things that people miss all the time. The other thing that a lot of people miss, and this is specific to alimony, this is always a hot button, and people get all fired up about alimony. But alimony is maintenance that is paid by one spouse, or money that's paid by one spouse to another to help them get back on their feet and be self-sustaining. A lot of women out there will forego alimony because they think they don't deserve it, or they don't know how to calculate it, or they don't know how to make an argument for it. And again, I say this is women because we mostly women going through this exercise with us. So our job as CDFAs is to help paint the picture of all the work that they've done, right? The contributions they've made to the family home and to raising the children, taking the kids to sporting events and taking them to the doctor and staying home with them to do their homework, and all those things are valuable to the household, including supporting your spouse in his or her career, right? So we have to, and that's one of those things that we do what's called a lifestyle analysis for a lot of our clients. And that's one of the things that we support people on, is helping them paint a picture for the courts of what they need and why they deserve it. And a lot of people miss that part. They just, they throw their hand, they get frustrated with it. They throw their hands up and decide they don't want to have anything to do with it, and they miss out. But what I will say is, somebody who is now on the verge of paying their last alimony payment, I have one more payment left. So I'm super happy about that. But it is a bridge. It is an opportunity for the ex-spouse to have some time to get on their feet and maintain their lifestyle. So I'm all for it, whether people agree with that or not, but it also has to be limited in time because you shouldn't have to pay alimony forever, right? Um, does that help?
Yeah, it's perfect. I was gonna touch that anyways. I was gonna ask you about that. The other thing I wanted to touch is asset protection. I know like we have the prenups and all that, but
Mhm.
what can you say about that asset protection for in the case of divorce and all that?
I'm a big fan of prenuptial agreements. A big fan. I wish there wasn't such stigma around the prenuptial agreement, and that maybe we should call it a premarital insurance plan or something. Maybe we just need to come up with a different name for it because the term prenup just has just such a negative connotation. But it will go a long way in protecting you and the assets that you bring into the marriage should you have a prenup in place. It doesn't have to be this very challenging, very icky conversation that you should have with your future spouse, but it's incredibly important, right? I mean, if we called it a marriage insurance plan, I think people would gravitate to it. We have homeowners insurance, we have car insurance, we have life insurance, and we're paying these companies on a monthly basis to protect us should something happen right, to our house or our car or whatever. Why don't we have marriage insurance? And we do. It's called a prenuptial agreement, but nobody wants to put it in place because there's such a negative connotation around it. So I think we just need to shift our mind about what that means. And I guess on the other end of the spectrum, when you are married, or when you're and then you decide to get a divorce, and once the divorce is finalized, one of the very first things you should be thinking about is your estate plan, right? Who's going to take care of your things should something happen to you now that you're a newly single person, especially if you have kids? You want to make sure that your kids are going to be taken care of. I'm sure people want to make sure their kids are taken care of. The assets you did leave the marriage with are protected, and so on. And you can do that through a solid estate plan. And that's one of the things that we'll do with all of our clients is walk them through that exercise just to put something in place. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with people, in the traditional financial planning setting, not outside of divorce. And, they've been divorced 5, 10, 20 years in some cases, and they still have their ex-spouse listed as beneficiaries on their retirement plans because they never change that information, or they just fall asleep and they bury their head in the sand and they forget about it. Those are things that people like us that are financial professionals will make sure you don't make the mistakes on. And so I think it's leading up to the marriage, prenup, after the marriage, you better have a solid estate plan in place just to protect yourself.
So, in regards for entrepreneurs and business owners, how would they protect themselves or go around about the divorce?
Well, you can put your business in a trust, right? Or if something happens to you, like here's an example. I'll give you another personal example. I have two companies, right? We have Allegiant Divorce Solutions, where we do the divorce financial planning, and have Woodson Wealth Management, where we do traditional retirement planning. Both of those companies are listed inside of our trust. That way, if something happens to me, there's someone in my life, and it's my sister-in-law, has the authority to come in, sell both of the businesses, whatever assets are available from in that case, go into my trust and are doled out to my kids at particular ages over time, right? 25, 30, and 35, I think, is what we selected. So now, obviously, if my wife is still alive, then she would handle the distribution of those assets and settlement of the selling the business, and then using the proceeds to continue to fund her life and take care of the kids. But if something happens to the two of us, there's somebody in place by way of our estate plan that will come in, step into our shoes, and take care of the distribution of those assets, sell the business, and take care of the assets. And a lot of business owners miss this stuff. And if you have business partners that are involved, I would make sure that you have key man insurance. The insurance that we use is called key man insurance, which means that if you and I, Richard, are in a business together, you have insurance on me and I have insurance on you to ensure that if you happen to pass away tomorrow, I can maintain the business, right? And then have some time to decide what we want to do with, do we want to sell it, or do I want to bring in another partner, and so on. So those are not necessarily related to the divorce piece, but in real life, and, outside of the divorce, those are things that business owners should be thinking about, just to protect themselves.
You say you act like a mediator. Are there, how do you work with clients? Do you have strategies, different strategies that you implement in regards in the process of what you're doing?
There are two main ways we work with clients. The first is in what I call a financial neutral, or a mediator. In the mediation setting, we are totally neutral. We are not unbiased. We don't talk to one spouse versus another more often or less. We don't talk to them, off to the side. We are simply, in a traditional setting, it's husband, wife, and then myself, or spouse and spouse and myself. And the three of us will work together to come up with an amicable solution. I am in the middle, helping them negotiate that settlement, not taking one side or another. In other cases, we work in what's called an advocacy role, right? Or we are an advocate for one party or another. In that case, we would work with one person in the divorce and help them understand, the lay of the land as far as the financials go, and really work with them to help negotiate a fair and equitable settlement. But we only work with one person in that case. So in any case, we're trying to get them to a fair and equitable settlement, but in the mediation, we're totally neutral. In an advocacy case, we are arguing for one person versus another.
How does someone prepare themselves for that process? Like they're gonna go through divorce. How do they prepare themselves, whether it's mentally or any preparation?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that word, mentally. That's one of the things that I encourage people to consider if they decide that they want a divorce. My go-to all the time is, you want to create team you. You want your legal guidance if you need it. You want your financial guidance, and you should have some emotional support as well. And you need to surround your people, loved ones, family, friends, whoever it is, that can be there to support you and be a shoulder to cry on, because it will get challenging emotionally. We work with a lot of divorce coaches that are out there. And that's one of the things that they'll help people with all the time, is not only managing the divorce process and understanding the nuances of how to fill out paperwork and what the court system looks like and so on, but also managing their emotions through the process. So if you're going to tell your significant other that you want a divorce, before you let out those words, you should surround yourself with people, your team, you. And if you think it's going to get ugly and you need to hire an attorney, then I guess you go that route. I would encourage you to try to avoid that if at all possible, but in some cases it's not possible. So legal, financial, emotional, surround yourself with those people, and I think you're going to be in a much better spot because of it.
So how does one survive a divorce financially?
The best way to survive a divorce financially is to leverage your resources and take your time. One thing I see a lot of people do is they want to rush through the process because they're spending a lot of money on attorneys and it's very stressful, and they have other things they want to think about, and they just want it over with. That was one of the main mistakes that I made in my own divorce, where I just wanted it over because I was tired of writing checks to the attorney. And I was tired of the stress that went along with it. But looking back, had I taken a little more time with some of the decisions that I had to make, I probably would have made better ones. So don't rush the process. Don't let it, don't belabor it either. I'm working on a case right now that we're 5 years in the making and it's still going on. You don't want that to happen because one day you want to move on with your life. But with some of the decisions that you have to make, take your time and leverage your resources, right? There are people like me out there that are available to help you. And it's not that expensive, right? We're definitely less expensive than an attorney. Use a divorce coach if you need the help. Use a therapist. Use your resources. That's the biggest thing I can say, aside from taking your time.
So, last words in regards to everything we've talked about that you want to add?
I think it goes back to what I said a couple times now. As much as I respect the work that attorneys do. I have an attorney on my wealth management team. She's amazing at the work that she does. She's an amazing financial planner. She's an amazing attorney, just great work. I have one of my best friends is an attorney, right? And he helped me navigate, my own divorce. But they shouldn't be the first call, right? Call somebody like me, right? We'll point you in the right direction. You know, I'm here to help. I'm not here to take anybody's money. I'm not here to, to try to rip people off. I am really in a position to help. And I think there are a lot of people out there like me that are that feel the same way, because it doesn't have to be incredibly challenging and incredibly expensive, right? We can get you through this without spending lots of money, as long as the other side is relatively cooperative. So I think, don't call an attorney first. Call somebody like me to really point you in the right direction. It doesn't have to be me. It could be anyone like me. There's thousands of us out there, but that would be the advice I would give to my 2016 self, the year before I decided I wanted a divorce, is think about this, look at this through a different lens. And I think that's what we need to do.
And where can people find you on social media or the internet?
Yeah, we're kind of all over the place. I think the first place to look is the website. So the website is allegiantds.com. I'm sure you're going to put the links up and after we part ways here today, but allegiantds.com, Allegiant Divorce Solutions. That's my company where we do the divorce financial planning. My contact information is on the website. You can call my cell phone, right? Like my cell phone is on. We don't have 800 numbers. We're not going to, you're not going to go through some phone tree and press 2 for help with divorce type of thing. It will go, if you call that number on the website, it will go to my cell phone. And, I'm happy to walk people through it if they need the help. We're on Instagram, Allegiant Divorce. And, we have a Facebook group that we established, a couple months back, and we already have a few hundred members of that group. And it's just a way for me to provide information for free. We don't need your email address. Nobody needs to sign up for anything. It's all a private group. It's called Preparing Financially for Divorce. So you can find us on Facebook. And, I just try to share as much information as I can to help people through this, because that's really at the end of the day what I'm trying to do is just help.